Eritrean forces has made it difficult for him to reach the many believers and fulfill his pastoral duties.
Parts of my diocese are under the forces of Eritrea since the beginning of war. I have not seen the face of my priests, of my faithful. You can imagine what someone feels in a situation like this. I cannot reach to them, they cannot reach to me. I cannot travel within Tigray because of the security of roads. In places, in areas where I should fulfill my pastoral duties.
The Archbishop highlights that he was sad to see children in Tigray struggling to stay alive while they should be going to school.
The Catholic Church runs highest number of schools educating children in Tigray after the governments. All our schools from KG to colleges are closed. Now we are entering a fourth year. Which country in which part of the world can feel sane while its children's education is deprived for more than 3 years? This is the biggest human crime that I can imagine. I am sad. Our students of our schools, all schools in Tigray, colleges, who could have started college and now being graduated third or fourth year, now they are struggling for life.
Abuna Tesfa Selassie Medhin says his church is grateful to individuals and organizations that have been at the forefront of helping the many in need in Tigray, but says he is disappointed to learn the response from the UN and different nations remains low.
Grateful to any organizations, individuals, our own partners, including the Holy Father, Pope Francis, who have several times voiced for peace and peaceful settlement and humanitarian access for Tigray people. Those who are directly helping or those who are advocating for this humanitarian services, be they individuals, organizations, or governments. I am immensely grateful to this. At the same time, I see our world is helpless with regard to its international organizations, like the United Nations. I mean, several attempts, several meetings, several statements are heard, but hundreds of thousands of people have died in Tigray since the beginning of discussions about Tigray in the floors of the United Nations.
The Archbishop stresses the need for international organizations to follow their governing principles and act to save the lives of millions in Tigray.
I really think that this kind of executive power that is in the hands of few, that may have been designed after world wars for those services, I think it's a high time to revisit. The principles are perfect, very good, but the way these principles are put in practice, I would like very much to see a reform that considers ethical values, human values as front line in these big institutions like the United Nations.
Hate speech against ethnic Tigrayans that normalize genocide continue to circulate on the social media. In a statement on Wednesday, UN Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide Alice Waimuru-Ndirtu raised concerns regarding the practice of dehumanizing languages against Tigrayans on social media that relate them to a virus that should be eradicated or to a cancer that should be treated. Inflammatory language by political leaders and armed groups in the war on Tigray continues unabated, said the advisor. Since the onset of the war on Tigray, hate speech has been used as an instrument on social media to call for the killing and the arrest of Tigrayans across Ethiopia. The special advisor said hate speech calling for the killing of every single youth from Tigray is particularly concerning and called on the tech companies to do everything possible to stop the onslaught of hate speech fueling the war on Tigray. U.S. State Department confirmed that Iran had sent Ethiopia armed drones in the summer of 2021 in violation of the standing of UN Security Council resolution. Spokesperson Vedant Patel said on Tuesday that the U.S. informed the UN about the transfer, noting it's in violation of UN Security Council resolution 2231, which endorsed the landmark 2015 nuclear deal world powers struck with Iran. Abil Zagabo has the details.
In his briefing on Tuesday, spokesperson for U.S. State Department, Vedant Patel, said Iran had sent Ethiopia military drones in summer of 2021. The spokesperson also said that the U.S. informed the UN about the transfer that is in violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2231, which endorsed the landmark 2015 nuclear deal world powers agreed with Iran.
But I'll also note that when we have assessed that Iran has transferred these same types of UAVs in the past, we have informed the UN. As in this case, as it relates to Yemen, but also we have informed the UN about Iran's transfer of the Mohajer 6 UAVs to Ethiopia last summer. I can't speak to any public messaging around that. I certainly didn't work here at the time, but this kind of transfer would fall under this restriction and would be subject to it.
The resolution lifted many sanctions imposed on the Islamic Republic of Iran in return for Tehran agreeing to hold back its nuclear activities and allowing international inspections to take effect. It also established a 2020 deadline for an arms embargo to be lifted on Iran despite maintaining restrictions on the transfer of certain military technologies until 2023. Multiple media outlets reported on Ethiopia's apparent use of Mohajer 6 drones as the tide of the war shifted in the government's favor, with the State Department's comment are the first government confirmation that the drones had been deployed in the war on Tigray. Chair for International Commission of Human Rights expert on Ethiopia, Betty Kari-Muringi, said in September of this year that drones operated by Ethiopian government on Tigray are inflicting the death and the injury of civilians and the destruction of civilian properties.
The Ethiopian military's increasing use of drones to conduct airstrikes over the last year has changed the conflict landscape. In theory, drones should allow for more precise targeting of military objectives. However, our investigation indicates that their use has exposed civilians to new and heightened risks. We have received reports of drone strikes in Tigray in the last 4 weeks, which have allegedly killed and injured civilians, including children.
Even though the UN, EU, US as well as other powerful actors have denounced the aerial attacks on civilians in Tigray, the Ethiopian and Eritrean forces continue airstrikes and drone attacks in different parts of Tigray almost on a daily basis.
People with special needs in El Shaddai sheltering camp experiencing worst living conditions as the war and the all-encompassing siege regain momentum, more severe than they ever had in Tigray. Our reporter Winta Kidana has spoken to these IDPs who say that the current situation in Tigray has become unbearable, especially to those with special needs.
Hagos Haile from Dogatenbin and Kibron Brahana from Shararo, northwestern Tigray are university graduates with special needs who are now sheltered in El Shaddai Relief and Development Association due to the war on Tigray. They say the war and the all-encompassing siege imposed on Tigray made them unable to reach their family after their graduation.
I
graduated from Maghale University in sociology in 2021, but couldn't go home because of the war that erupted in Tigray. Consequently, we stayed here for a while, but the university finally had to let us go to El Shaddai at the temporary IDP camp, along with IDPs from Western Tigray.
The war on Tigray broke right before we were about to graduate, and the university decided to let us stay for a while. But things kept on exasperating, and we ended up being sheltered in El Shaddai sheltering camp.
Hagos and Brahana say that though they were visually impaired, back in the peaceful days, they were able to picture a hopeful future and managed a stable life despite their special needs.
When I was about 8 years old, I got diagnosed with a pox and I tried to get treatment. However, my vision couldn't come back. Losing my vision was a turning point in my life because I had to practice a lifestyle in accordance to to my special need. Not sound like I am saying it was easy, but I managed to have a really stable life. I always was hopeful about growing and having a better life and eventually help my family.
My dreams were to help my family and the community, especially people with special needs, with the knowledge I get from university. But ultimately, I wanted to find happiness in life.
However, now, Hagos and Brahana say the war on Tigray has destroyed all their dreams to a point where they have to struggle so hard to survive.
But now, the war on Tigray and the siege that has followed it has ruined all my dreams and plans, and I know have remained dependent on others' generosity, which I never imagined my life would turn out to be.
I can't even have proper time to grieve, let alone to wish for happiness. With the blockade on essential items and the constant airstriking, happiness and dreams are a luxurious commodity I can't afford because I can't barely survive.
Hagos and Brahana finally call on the international community to take a major action in ending the suffering of Tigrayan people, especially those with special needs.
I want to thank El Shaddai for the help it offered us so far, because our life is a lot better than those living and sleeping in the streets and can't be able to get food, though none of what we have here is barely enough, because the institution is running out of resources. The international community couldn't do anything major except releasing a statement of concern, and this is especially hurting the lives of children, people with special needs and other vulnerable parts of the society.
It's time that the international community should work together to stop the war in Tigray and allow access to humanitarian aid.
Well, that's it for me today. Thank you for tuning in.